They tried to spy on churches, labeled parents as terrorists, and even sent SWAT teams after peaceful pro-lifers. This is the FBI now, and it's worse than you think.
Churches. That's not true. We have it. A whistleblower brought forward the list for us. He said then that only one field office had worked on it. Turns out we know from another whistleblower, multiple field offices worked on it. He said that it was never posted on the internal system. It turns out it was. We believe it's still in effect. Will you find out who was involved in this gross abuse of Americans' First Amendment rights? And will you discipline them? And if you possibly can, will you fire them, Mr. Patel, consistent with department policy and law?
Senator, you have my commitment to investigate any matters such as this one that are important to Congress. I will fully utilize, if confirmed, the investigative powers of the FBI to give you the information you require and also to hold those accountable who violated the sacred trust placed in them at the FBI.
I'm glad to hear you say that, and I'm glad you use the word sacred trust, because that's exactly what it is. The FBI is the most powerful law enforcement body in this nation, arguably the most powerful law enforcement body, at least in a free nation in the world. And to have this body corrupted politically such that it is targeting people of faith in this country and then lying about it to this committee and the American people is unimaginable. I'll be honest with you. I never thought this would happen in the United States of America. I just didn't. If you had told me 5 years ago we'd be reading memos like this, I would have said, no way, that's bad fiction. In fact, it's a horrible reality. The department needs to be cleaned up, the agency does, and rights restored and protected. I'm glad to hear you say that. Let me ask you this. Do you think it is appropriate for the FBI to be sending agents, including counterterrorism agents, to the parents of children who went to school board meetings and asked about critical race theory in their schools, asked about the school's masking policy during COVID? Should those parents be treated as domestic terrorists?
Parents who have the courage to ensure their children are taught what they feel is right, and those who have the courage of their convictions to go houses of worship, in my book, will never be domestic terrorists.
I'm delighted to hear you say that. You're familiar, I am sure, with this memorandum issued by the Attorney General, the last Attorney General, Merrick Garland, directing the FBI and other law enforcement agencies to look into parents who went to these school board meetings. And we know from whistleblowers who've come forward to this committee and given us the evidence that, in fact, the FBI opened multiple cases against multiple parents across the nation, I believe, including in my home state of Missouri. Another gross abuse, incredible political power brought to bear against everyday citizens. Why? Because they went to a school board meeting that they're paying for and asked about what their kids were being taught. Once again, I can't imagine, I couldn't have ever thought this would happen in the United States of America. Will you find out who was involved in this policy within the FBI, who agreed with it, who implemented it, who encouraged it? Will you find out that, Mr. Patel? Will you do an internal investigation? And will you make clear that those who supported this policy are appropriately disciplined? And will you make clear that the FBI will never do something like this again?
If confirmed and pursuant to your congressional request, absolutely, Senator.
Thank you. Let me ask you this. Do you think it's appropriate for the FBI to target people of faith, particularly those who hold pro-life convictions? Do you think it's appropriate for the FBI to single out and target people of faith in order to discourage the exercise of their First Amendment rights?
There can never be a targeting by law enforcement just based on their people's faiths.
And yet, under this last administration, the FBI and DOJ together brought numerous prosecutions under the FACE Act for nonviolent protests. President Trump has recently pardoned some of these folks, but it also includes individuals like Mark Houck from Philadelphia region, from Pennsylvania, who had an FBI SWAT team arrive at his door in the early hours of the morning, armed, of course, terrorizing him and his children, took him into custody. They charged him with a FACE Act violation. Why? Because he took his young son to a peaceful demonstration outside an abortion clinic. When his young son was shoved to the ground, he defended him. Mark Houck was acquitted by a jury, acquitted. Nevertheless, the FBI used their full resources, including a SWAT team, to try and terrorize him. Meanwhile, how many churches that were firebombed or pregnancy care centers that were firebombed, how many of them were protected by the last administration? Just about zero. It is an unbelievable instance of targeting. Mr. Patel, will you end this targeting if you get to the FBI, if you are confirmed? Will you end it? And will you make clear to all agency personnel that there can be no targeting on the basis of religious belief, and this will never happen again in the United States of America, at least not under your watch?
Senator, if confirmed, and it speaks to an issue we were talking about earlier, there will be no such targeting if I'm confirmed as FBI director. And the resources of the FBI, which are funded by the American taxpayer dollars, in the 7 minutes that you and I have been talking about, 2 people have died from fentanyl overdoses. 1 person has been shot to death in this country, and 3 people have been raped. The resources of the FBI will go to that mission set and that mission set alone, because America deserves a better brand of justice, and I'm going to give it to them.
Fantastic.
Welcome back to Jace Manhwa. If you care about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the future of this country, then hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the truth the mainstream refuses to cover. Now, let's talk about what we just saw in that hearing. Because what Senator Hawley exposed and what Mr. Patel had to answer for should alarm every single American. The FBI, the most powerful law enforcement agency in our nation, has been caught targeting Catholic parishes trying to recruit informants inside houses of worship. That's not just wrong, it's outright un-American. Our First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion, not freedom until the government decides your beliefs are suspicious. This is what totalitarian regimes do, not what should ever happen on American soil. And it doesn't stop there. The FBI has been accused of opening investigations on parents who simply showed up at school board meetings. Parents who dared to question critical race theory, gender ideology, or mask mandates. They were labeled as potential domestic terrorists. Think about that. Hard-working moms and dads standing up for their children's education, treated like enemies of the state. That's the weaponization of government power against everyday Americans. Then there's the blatant targeting of pro-life Christians like Mark Houck, who was raided by a full-blown FBI SWAT team in front of his family for peacefully protesting at an abortion clinic, only to be completely acquitted by a jury. Meanwhile, when churches and pregnancy centers are firebombed, there's radio silence from the FBI. If you're pro-life, you're treated like a criminal. If you attack churches, they look the other way. That is a disgrace, and let's not forget, this same FBI pressured social media giants to censor Americans, from the Hunter Biden laptop story to debates over COVID policies and Supreme Court decisions. That is government-directed censorship, plain and simple. It's unconstitutional, and it's dangerous. Free speech is the backbone of a free republic, and when federal agents manipulate what Americans can say or read, that's not safety, that's tyranny. Here's the bottom line. If Mr. Patel becomes FBI director, he must clean house. He must end the corruption, stop the political targeting, and return the FBI to its real mission, fighting actual crime, not silencing Americans who think differently from the ruling class. Because if the most powerful law enforcement agency in America can target Catholics, parents, pro-lifers, and free speech itself, then none of us are safe.